My name is Bob Danis, and I play the trumpet. Well, at a very early age, I took some piano lessons, but I didn't want to practice because at that time I wanted to go out and play. But later on in junior high school, I became enamored with a trumpet player that was very popular at that time. His name was Harry James. And I said, I would like to be able to do what he's doing. And so I took music lessons in junior high school back in Detroit, where I was born and grew up, and progressed from there. I met some other guys in the band, and we started a little group that played other than the Mickey Mouse music that you played in high school bands. And it progressed from there, and I just love playing. It's something I love to do. And I've taken lessons from different people over the years. That has improved me to some extent, I hope. The last teacher that I had was a man by the name of Yuan Racy, who was the lead trumpet player for the MGM Orchestra and was very highly regarded in show business circles. And he taught me an awful lot. Well, I never really made music a career per se, because I had good steady day work, and music business is pretty tough to make a living at. It's hit and miss. And no matter how good you are, there are 500 guys better than you are who are waiting for these jobs. And so I did it for the love of the music, not because I wanted to make a living at it. Well, I was sitting in with a piano player at the local senior center in Newhall, and got to meet other people who were into music, and we just formed the Fiddlesticks. Originally, the name came from Pat Palmer, who was the originator, and it started out as a trio and evolved from there into the quintet today. And we play every Wednesday at the senior center. Well, every Wednesday is a highlight to see people dancing and having a good time. That's enjoyable. As far as a highlight in my musical career per se, the one that I always tell people about, because you can't get any better than this. About 60 years ago, I used to sit in with a piano player at a piano bar in Westwood. That's when piano bars were very big all over Southern California. And he called me one night and he said, Bob, would you like to play a gig with me Friday night? And I said, sure. His name was Lenny Blewett. He was a wonderful piano player. He said, okay, I'll give you the information. It's at the Bogart residence in Holmby Hills. And I said, you're kidding. And so he gave me all the information, the address, and I got out there. Now this was about 6 months after Humphrey Bogart had passed away. And his widow, Lauren Bacall, was holding a big party for some of her close Hollywood friends. And I got to play with some wonderful musicians on this little gig. We had, I think, about a 6-piece gig. One of the people I played with was a flute and reed player by the name of Buddy Collette, who was very famous in this area. And the guest list included a who's who of Hollywood. Every big name that was big in Hollywood at that time was at this party. And when the gig was over, I was putting my horn in the trumpet case, and a guy came up behind me and he said, man, don't put the horn away, the party's just getting started. And I turned around and it was Frank Sinatra. Oh, wow. And I think it doesn't get any better than that when Frank Sinatra tells you not to put your horn away.
My name is Dick Snyder, and I play electric guitar and electric bass. Originally, I started getting involved in music at about 6 years old. My mom was teaching me to play piano, or attempting to teach me to play piano. And 6-year-olds' hands are pretty darn small to work a full-size keyboard, so it was very frustrating. However, it was a good source of music theory, but I quickly segued to violin, because you could play a 3/4 size violin a lot easier than a full-size violin. So I started studying to be a classical violinist instead of a piano player. Then when I got into junior high school, there wasn't much opportunity to play violin. There was no orchestra in the junior high. So somebody talked me into playing cornet in the high school concert band. So I ended up in 7th grade as first chair trumpet playing a cornet in the junior high school band. Then we moved to California, and rather than being in band, I wanted still to be a classical violinist. So I signed up for the orchestra in junior high. My last year in junior high school, they had me playing first chair violin and participating in the all-city orchestra. But I still wasn't having as much fun as I thought I could have, because I'd already bought a guitar. I'd played a banjo earlier back in Minnesota as a youngster. And I was having much more fun playing blues on the guitar and surfing music. And I wanted to be a surfer dude, and classical violin didn't fit into that picture for me. So I quit playing classical violin. As they say, the rest is history. I sort of taught myself to play guitar, had the great good fortune to study at the Dick Grove School of Music and learn music theory in pretty good detail, which is serving me in really good stead these days. Well, it's always been semi-professionally. I had the opportunity early on. In high school, I met a guy by the name of Ted McKeever. We started playing jazz around clubs in Southern California, where the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board had to give us permits because we were underage, playing in places where they sold alcohol. Ted went on to become the music director for the Harrah's clubs in Las Vegas, Reno, Tahoe, and wherever there was a Harrah's club. And I kind of lost touch with him until about 3 months before he died, but I did get to go to visit him where he played kind of his own memorial service up in Bremerton, Washington. We were going to have a jam session, but he was stuck in the hospital, so the hospital brought in the piano, catered the whole event for 60-some guests, and he sat there at the piano with IVs in each arm with a blue gown on and playing the piano and reminiscing about his lifetime as a musician. I was already working for the space program when I got the opportunity to maybe go on the road as a musician, but if you had the choice, would you rather work sending people to the moon or playing jazz all around the country? I picked going to the moon, but I've always been able to augment my income on a part-time basis, playing casuals, played with some fabulous people, including the ones with us right now over the years. Have lots of fun stories to tell too. Larry Dean, the drummer currently with the band. I met Larry in 1969 when I dropped into a jam session I'd heard about in Pasadena and sat in with the band there. And one of the people that was listening to us at the piano bar was applauding a whole lot, sent his, I thought girlfriend, turned out it was his wife, over to talk to us at the break. His name was Frank Jordan. Larry and I ended up playing in Frank Jordan's compact big band for 40 years until Frank died. And we had wonderful musicians from all different walks of life. We never, until afterwards, realized what famous bands they were from. They just never made a big deal about playing with Stan Kenton or Buddy Rich or Louis Bellson or Harry James or any of that. But after the fact, I found out that's who these guys have been playing with. So I came by my music talent by osmosis from these people. And I'm sure glad I got to stumble across them, because I'm having a lot of fun now. Well, again, Larry, their drummer, called me up one day and said they'd lost their bass player, and would I be able to come up and sub on bass until they were able to find another one. As it turned out, I had just had spinal fusion surgery in my cervical spine and my neck, and I was having trouble working things out on the bass, getting cramps. If the bass player stops playing, there's a train wreck in the music. If a guitar player stops, well, guitar players stop all the time, so do trumpet players. The piano player never gets to stop. But so they said, okay, you can play guitar, Grady can play bass, who's been holding down the bass chair. And then over the last about a year that I've been playing, it's been fun to go up and see these people, having a great time. Made a lot of friends in the crowd up there. We've done some casuals, one casual elsewhere where I saw a lot of these people and recognized them. So I got a bunch of new fun friends out of this group. Fortunately now, we have a little bit of serendipity going on. Larry Dean's neighbor across the street is also a bass player. So I'm able to back off and be a substitute for that new bass player, who I also know. And I could sub for him on bass or Grady on guitar. So who knows what's in the future. It sounds like that's going to possibly be fun too. None in particular. It's always a great time every Wednesday. They always have such a great attitude over there about life. It's like a bunch of teenagers.
My name is Bob HOEY, and I play the valve trombone. Well, my grandfather played cornet, and he had a silver cornet that was given to him in England before he graduated from college. And he brought that over, and my cousins and I, we all played that cornet, learned how to play the cornet. And about the 4th grade, I guess, is when I started. And then I played, I got a hold of a trumpet and played that for, till I was out of college. I had I formed up in my junior year at high school, a 7-piece dance band. And we earned my way through college by playing music for sororities and for fraternities, and did that till I graduated from high school or from college. I didn't play. After I graduated, I came down to Edwards Air Force Base as an engineer. I didn't play for about 6 or 7 years. And I got an opportunity to play, and I realized that I couldn't keep my lip up on a trumpet because I wasn't playing very often. So I switched over to the valve trombone, and I've been playing it ever since. Well, probably the highlight of the, at least the thing that got me started again was I was working as an engineer out at Edwards, and there was a test pilot that came in, or a fighter pilot, who played tenor sax. And he wanted to form a group, so he formed a 4-piece group, which was a tenor, a trombone, a drum, and a bass, just 4 pieces. His wife was a singer. And we played all over the whole Southern California, all the military bases, and had a great time. He was a super sax player, and I learned a lot about music from that. And I played with a bunch of other different bands over the years, never as a career. I've had no musical training other than high school band and stuff like that. It was, I had a really good high school band director, and he helped me a whole lot get started. And once I got going, I loved music, didn't want to make my living at it. And so it was a hobby for my whole career. I think the first opportunity I had, Dave Kloss used to play tenor sax with the group, and they had a gig on New Year's Eve, and Bob was sick or something, I don't remember. So Dave asked me to come sit in for him. So I played that New Year's Eve gig, and somewhere along the line, I got hired to play in the group. That was about 2007, I think, is when I started. Oh, I don't know of any particular highlights. I really enjoy the opportunity to play the harmonies that we play with people that I know are good musicians, and it makes a good sound.
I'm Mary Smith, and I play the piano. I first started out on the organ. The school bus from Van Nuys High dropped me off at Ventura and Van Nuys Boulevard, and there was an organ store there. And I went in there. I loved the sound of the organ, a little spinet organ. And the salesman said, "Do you know how to play the piano? Do you know any music?" I said, "No." He said, "I'll teach you for free. I'll teach you chords. I'll teach you how to play. Don't tell your parents. Just come in here every afternoon, because after you can play, they're going to buy an organ." And that's what happened. It took about 3 months. I told my parents I can play the organ. Come down, you have to come hear me play. And I played Peg of My Heart, because I knew that was one of their favorites. They bought it on the spot. And so I played the organ until about age 24. My husband played bass, he also played piano, but we just randomly stopped at a Shakey's in Thousand Oaks. Uh-oh, I heard Ragtime and Dixieland, which you can't do on an organ. And that's when I told my husband, Bill, I said, I want an upright piano. I want that music. I love Ragtime and Dixieland. So that's when I switched over to the piano. Well, we kept the organ, but later we sold the organ because my husband played bass in Thousand Oaks. That piano player moved to Placerita Canyon, got a job playing Shakey's up Bouquet Canyon. He got tired of the job and he wanted me to take over the piano. And that was in 1973. He gave me some tips on how to be an accompanist, because he said you can't play in a band and solo, you have to learn how to accompany. So he taught me that, and we took the job over at Shakey's from 73 to 95 when my husband became ill, and that's when the job ended there. And then in 2003, I went to the senior center. Because I was a widow, I thought I'd make some new friends. Well, Pat Palmer, who played bass, used to sub, especially when my husband was ill, came over to me and said, my friend Bill Shaw is a professional drummer. I'm going to bring my bass tomorrow. I'm going to have him bring his drums. We're going to entertain the people here. I said, no, Pat, I have not played the piano since 1995. Haven't touched it. And I don't want to bring back sad memories of Shakey's. I do not want to play. Now, I was expecting him to comfort me and say, I understand. He said, well, that's the most selfish attitude I've ever heard. You have talent. Bring your talent here and share it. I said, I haven't played in 7 years. He said, it's like riding a bike. You still know how to do it. The next day, this is amazing. We played 2 songs, and a man came up, wanted a band card, and hired us to play his anniversary party. 2 songs, and we had a gig. So I told him, I said, I'll talk to you at the break. He wanted to know what we charged and the name of the band. I said, well, I'll talk to you at 11:30. So I said to Pat and Bill, can you think of a name for this band? And Pat Palmer said, okay, give me one more song. And he said, fiddle, bass fiddle, sticks, and ivory. Of course, when we started adding instruments, we didn't know how to handle it, and Pat said, just say plus. Okay, so then we had our first gig. The next time we played, Pat said, we should always start with the same song, a warm-up song. So what do you want to start with? And there was silence. And Pat said, I guess we are undecided. And that's how Undecided became our opener. Highlights, it's interesting. I'll just share one. There's been many, but one thing about being in the band, it takes you to exciting, exotic places. Like just last Thursday, we played in Alhambra. But about Bogart, one of my highlights is we played some fancy at Warner Marriott, some fancy black tie event where they recreated on the stage Rick's Cafe with palm trees and everything, and they had Casablanca showing in the corner. They had a Bogart impersonator and a Ingrid Bergman, or was that Lauren Bacall? I can't remember which one it was, but we were told to play As Time Goes By every hour on the hour, which we did. And that was a real highlight. One of the things I remember about that job was an ice sculpture of a swan that was as big as this table. I'd never seen anything like that. I've been to many homes, mansions. This band went to the Hunt Club. Bob and I played on the Queen Mary. The music has taken us many interesting places. Yes, we played at Magic Mountain for several years, Dixieland, from the Shakey's band. And unfortunately, the band, the park went total union. And if we joined the union, we would owe them, when you consider the amount of money that Shakey's paid us. So we didn't join the union. And so the park went total union. But playing at Magic Mountain was very thrilling to know that we were of that caliber to be in a park. But what I'm going to close with is more important than the music is I've made such wonderful friends. We all get along, we love each other. It's not just showing up and going home. There's a fellowship that's very deep. So that's it.
My name is Larry Dean, and my real last name is Tilgren, and I play drums. Well, sort of by accident. I got discharged from the Navy in 1960, and I had a little background as far as high school snare drum and stuff like that. And I got a job at Sears busting tires, and I soon discovered that playing music was a lot easier than busting tires. And so shortly thereafter, I became a full-time musician into rock and roll. Larry Dean came about because nobody could pronounce Tilgren, and it used to turn out Pilgrim and like that kind of a thing. So I just, Dean is my middle name, so I decided to use this Larry Dean. And so there's a whole bunch of people that don't know me by anything other than Larry Dean, with a few exceptions. Well, I've done some studio work, but nobody of note in the studios. And I was lucky enough to, being real early in the rock and roll, to play with a lot of different people that went on to bigger and better things. I was too busy having fun to follow them. But a lot of different people in the rock and roll era. I got into playing other than rock and roll just by naturally progressing and studying later on. The first 20 years I played just by ear, and then I went back and studied with people and learned how to read music and discovered the big band stuff that I really enjoyed. More for the reading than I did for the actual music. It just was a challenge to see the charts and play what was written there. I enjoyed playing with a band that I hadn't played with before, where it was well charted, and I'd see maybe one of the trumpet players or somebody that wasn't reading that well, because my music would have all the little spots to do something on. And I'd enjoy watching them look around and see who the drummer was that was being a smart guy back there and hitting all the places they weren't. And it just progressed from there. With Fiddlesticks and Ivory, I was approached by Bob Danis, and they had lost their drummer. Gary White was his name, and I knew Gary from the LAPD band because he used to sub for me in that band. And Bob invited me out to sub on a Wednesday gig out there. And Mary approached me after the gig with a chocolate for me, and that was it. I was hooked at that point. So I've been in the band ever since.
And you get chocolate at every gig?
Every gig. If I don't get the chocolate, I don't play.
Cool.
Oh, I'm Harvey REIMER, and I lived in like I said, in Las Vegas for 30 years. I lost my wife; she passed away, and my daughter said, "Why don't you move here closer to me?" She lives in Newhall here, so I moved here back here in 05. So her neighbor said, "Well, I have lunch at the senior center, so why don't you go have lunch there?" So I started going in since '05. I've been having lunch there. So I've known her for a couple of years, Mary and Bob and everybody. So I don't know, I start getting there early and I start moving the piano out for her and turning the lights on and open the back door so they can get in the back door. So I've been there doing that for about 5 years, I suppose, or more. I was born in Kansas on a dairy farm. My dad had a dairy farm. I moved to California in 04, and I worked for Sparkletts Drinking Water Company. I was a route accounting supervisor in Las Vegas. I retired, and I had my retirement dinner at the Golden Nugget downtown. After my wife passed away, I lived in Vegas, and I got in contact with a lady friend there, and she was high in society. So I've had lunch with the governor of Nevada twice. All right. I've had dinner one time with the mayor of Las Vegas.
The current mayor?
The current, well, his wife is now the mayor. Oscar Goodman. Now he was a criminal lawyer.
He was the one that used to prosecute the mafia guys.
Yep. Well, he was the mayor. Now, you can just be mayor for 8 or 12 years. Now, his wife is the mayor. Well, I enjoy their band. I like their music, and I enjoy their band, and that's why I go. Most of the time, I go there just for the band.
My name is CANDYE RUCKER, and I am the stepdaughter of the trumpet player Bob Danis. I try to get there every Wednesday as best I can, every chance I get. They bring an energy to the senior center that I don't think anybody else that plays there does. They've created a place where people fall in love and they dance and that room is filled with joy every Wednesday. It's standing room only, and it's a really nice place to see people dance and meet each other and enjoy great music. It's one thing about having a skill level, and it's another thing about the camaraderie that this band has. They're all very skilled musicians. They've all played with a variety of musicians, but the energy and just the friendship that they have makes the music sound better, I think, just because they're having so much fun making it. Bob used to sing to my mom little songs, and that's kind of a highlight. Watching people fall in love on the dance floor and continue every week. There's a couple, Tommy and Rudy, who we watch, and the band has provided them a place where they can let their romance blossom, and now they're the highlight on Wednesdays, and they're just a light in that room, and it's partially because of the atmosphere that they bring to the room and the beautiful music that they make for us to listen to.